This is part 2 of Lesson 8 or Chapter 8, Firewall Deployment Considerations. It includes firewall policies and various technical components of firewall policies with regard to firewall deployment considerations. A written firewall policy provides several benefits and serves several purposes, such as a guide for installation and configuration, a tool to assist in troubleshooting, a guideline to detect changes and differences, and a mechanism to ensure consistent filtering across all firewalls. A written firewall policy includes a description of security zones, which are different zones of risk and zones of trust in the network, the type of firewall used, the rule sets in the firewall, or rule sets in the various firewalls, logging considerations and requirements, backup considerations and requirements, and more includes what to log and how logging happens, who is responsible for firewall administration, how to access firewall configuration interfaces, where to physically and logically locate the firewall, what level of physical access is necessary, and a lot more than that. A reverse proxy. It allows access to the internal website content from the public network. It has three major benefits: enhanced security because there is no direct access to internal web servers from the public network; encryption, the proxy server can function as the encryption endpoint, allowing for packet inspection of traffic destined for the web server; and reverse caching, increased performance because web pages are cached on the proxy server. Port forwarding. The receipt of IP traffic based on the IP port number. The IP port number forwards to another IP port number. The benefits here are the ability to utilize a single public IP address. It maps to multiple other internal destinations, and there's no direct connectivity to internal resources. Here we see a diagram of combining port forwarding with network address translation, NAT. The private IP address of the internal systems on the right-hand side of the diagram are masked from the public network. By adding NAT to the port forwarding configuration, now you can see they're masked. Note the external-facing corporate IP address of 207.46.170.123, with internal addresses designated to the outside world by their port number. So based on the port, in this case 443, then maps to port 80, IT 192.168.1.210, and port 8080 maps to port 8080, and here we see internal server private IP address of 192.168.1.212. Bastion hosts are simple single-layer architecture. They reside outside the firewall or in the demilitarized zone. They typically serve as the first point of connection from the internet. They can be a software or hardware solution, but quite often they are a hardware solution, a particular type of server that is located in the DMZ where all traffic has to go through first. You can have a proprietary operating system built specifically to be a Bastion host, or a general purpose operating system which serves as a client or server operating system, can be configured to serve as Bastion host. Here we see a diagram of how their Bastion host placement, the ingress-egress architecture of the Bastion host in the DMZ. For the people in the internal network to access the internet, they have to go through the Bastion host, and for internet messages to come through to the internal network, which includes websites and other messages, they also have to go through the Bastion host. When you construct and order firewall rules, rule sets are about enforcing security relevant to the organization. You need to use fewer rules rather than more rules, and getting rules out of order causes unexpected and unwanted consequences. Here you have critical denial exceptions. These should be first or early in the rule set. Rules for common traffic should be earlier in the set rather than later, and the universal denial rule should be the last rule in the rule set. What happens when security gets in the way of doing business? Something has to change. When security changes or when business tasks change, the security policy in the business has to adjust. If the adjustment is not made, security can interfere with business operations. Short-term options, here are some. None of them are optimal. You could disable security so the business task can go forward. That's not a very good idea. Hackers could eventually find their way in, but worse and more importantly, employees may change their mentality to security, shifting from viewing it as essential and mandatory to optional and non-essential. A preferred and secure long-term response is to reevaluate the business task in light of the security infrastructure, to design a new security solution or modify how the task is accomplished. In summary, we talked about written firewall policies, network and firewall security strategies, firewall rule construction and ordering, reverse proxy and port redirection, public internet and private network separation, and the use of bastion hosts in demilitarized zones.